everybody. Happy Tuesday and welcome to another hour of Good Natured. Those of you who tune in regularly know we took last week off for, it's the last scheduled meeting of the Conservation on Tap effort put forth by the Next Generation Council of the Conservation Foundation, but they didn't say they're done completely. I don't have any more dates to share with you quite yet, but if they do decide to go with it, they kind of got the sense that maybe it would become the sort of program that they do in the winter. But it was really fun, and I know some of you were able to join us for those Tuesday nights in December, January, and February. They did all kinds of cool trivia things, and I just thought I'd written this one down. I didn't. We all were asked to put our guesses forth. I didn't come anywhere close. This was a tough one, but I'm going to put it out here just to kind of get your mind thinking about the scale of the wonder of nature we have around us. How many native plants are there in Illinois? And that includes both the woody and the herbaceous plants. And how many animals are there in our great state? Now, this is just Illinois. And I don't think they did, and I don't think they included the fungi. I think this is just plants and animals. And this was the sort of thing that they did at these gatherings to kind of get people talking and get the brain thinking. And of course, there was also it was conservation on tap, so there were beverages to keep the conversation flowing. But yeah, go ahead and give those two questions a thought, and I'll give you the answers at the end. The number of native plants in Illinois and the number of animals native to Illinois. The number of animals, I should mention, does include insects. I guess another question might be, does it include arthropods? Are we throwing spiders in there too? I think probably yes. Anyway, it's a big number. Get your brains thinking. We'll revisit this at the end. Let's see, what else do we have? Lots of things going on here. I feel like we have to play a little bit of catch up since we haven't gotten together for 2 weeks. Since we're doing little announcement things, I'll put this out there too, and I think I'll share the screen so you can read while I talk. It is time once again for the Spring Ephemerals project. So this is something that the Park District started back in, let's start with this page. This started back in the pandemic year in 2020, and it was a way that just here at the Park District, our Assistant Superintendent Chris came up with this idea as a way to just engage with people when we couldn't actually have them come into the building. We weren't doing any programs at that point, any in-person programs. In fact, that was when we started doing Good Natured, was back in 2020. But this was a way to have people pay a little bit of attention and maybe do some learning while they're in our parks. The primary location for this program the first year was Delnor Woods Park. It was using, and it continues to use, the iNaturalist online forum, the online database, as a means of collecting the data for this project. But really all we asked people to do was to enjoy a walk in the woods and then learn about the spring wildflowers that come up. Usually these things come up and bloom and are done by the time the leaves come out on the trees. So it's a way to get people out after maybe having been getting a little case of cabin fever, having been locked up over the course of the winter, or kept inside anyway, right? Hopefully not locked up. But We expanded the project last year to include all of Kane County. And we're going ahead with that again this year with the following partners down at Fox Valley at Red Oak Nature Center. There's several forest preserves in the Kane County system that are going to be participating this year. Geneva's on board, Wild Ones of Greater Kane County, the Batavia Wildflower Sanctuary, Campton Township Open Space locations, and also the Conservation Foundation. So if you're not familiar with iNaturalist, you can use the QR code on the signs to take you to the website. We could also take a little visit to the website too, if you want. But what we're asking people to do is just take note of when they see these flowers in bloom. Now, that's kind of an important aspect of this project. In bloom is ideal because that can help help us track dates over time. So if we keep doing this year after year and we see, like in this particular picture, it's a trout lily, and we see the trout lilies are blooming at the beginning of May one year, but the end of April another year. And then, after 10 years of collecting data, are we seeing any trends after pie in the sky, but maybe after 50 years of collecting data, what are those trends starting to show us? iNaturalist, that's a database that the longer it exists, the more useful it becomes, the more points of data that are added. And iNaturalist, it includes, it's not just plants, it's pretty much anything in nature. It does include fungi, as well as many other things. And a lot of agencies and individuals too are finding that it's a useful way to do research projects, hence our Spring Ephemerals project. People can report through the app. You can put that on your phone and you can upload photos with the date and the place. Until recently, I did not have the app on my phone, so I was doing it what some people would probably call the old-fashioned way, but it's the way I was most comfortable with, which was taking a photo and then going home and uploading it as I was using my laptop. You can do it either way. And again, as we're talking here, let's just go, let's go to, let's see, I'm gonna stop this share. And we're going to go, we're going to start a new one that will take us, let's go here. Move this out of the way. I'll just pull up iNaturalist. And let's see, I'll log in. So I have created an account. These are free accounts that you can create. I will log in. And then I'm going to do a search here for Kane County, Illinois. So here we are. You can see, so it is solid with observations. If you just want to see what's going on in our area, you can zoom in. You can even zoom into your neighborhood and see what people have observed. But all those little points are observations that people have made. Now, to get back to our Ephemerals project, if you go up here on the drop-down menus up here, there's one that says community. And if you go to projects, here we're going to search for Kane County Spring Ephemerals 2023. And there it is. So the project doesn't start until tomorrow, so we don't have any observations recorded yet. Oh, look at that. They've got a countdown. It's going to start in 3 hours, 46 minutes and 49 seconds. Ready, set, go. Yeah, we were looking to people throughout Kane County to go around, and it doesn't have to be in a park or a forest preserve. If you've got something cool in your yard and you want to make a record of it and have it appear in this data set, you are more than welcome to do that as well. This explains what we're doing. In fact, I'm going to let's go back and see, see if I can take us to the 2022 back farther here. Yep, looks like I'm locked in. In 2022, we can look and see what the observations. So here was our observations last year. We had 2,114 observations of 447 species turned in by 254 observers, and they were verified by 236 identifiers. So you might recognize, some of you might recognize Hazelnut Man. He's a famous naturalist, Mr. Shuba in Campton Township. He had the most species with 77. And it's I don't want to spend the whole time our whole hour looking at this, but it is really cool, the variety that things that people are seeing, and what their eyes are drawn to. We had everything, the first year we had everything from crocus and daffodils on up through our native wildflowers, as well as trees that were blooming. So anyway, check it out. And if you'd like me to send you the QR code or the link to the project page, just let me know. But it's something that is front and center here at the Park District, because this is now 2020, 21, 22, 23. This is our 4th year of collecting data. So kind of exciting. And we'd love to have you join us. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop. Well, actually, you know what? I can just look at this. I'm going to be smooth here and take us to this week's slides, which actually go, this first one, I thought this would be kind of cool to do a compare and contrast. So I took this picture on Saturday, February 11th, and that is where the skunk cabbage at Fearsing Creek Fen was on that warm and so comparatively warm and sunny Saturday afternoon. It was just barely poking up. And if you recall, and there seems to be this weather pattern that we're in, where the beginning of the week is warm, and then as we go through right around Thursday into Friday, things start to change. Things get cold on Friday, and then it picks up again and warms up over the weekend. Well, this was a warm Saturday. The following Friday, which was, I believe, the 17th, was a cold and snowy day. You can see there's even a little snow here, but here's skunk cabbage. This is a different park. This is not Fearsing Creek Fen. This is Glenwood Park Forest Preserve. That's an area that has lots of groundwater seeping up to the surface, and water by its nature is not frozen. So the temperatures there are just a little bit warmer. I've had a couple of local nature photographers tell me that places like this, where the seeps and the springs are right there on the surface, that the skunk cabbage tends to bloom just a little bit sooner. So 6 days later, and here's the skunk cabbage, and it's opening up. It's not quite, here's the spathe and spadix formation of that flower, our earliest spring wildflower. And if we zoom in, we can see the flower, the pollen wasn't quite available yet, but it was certainly, I would say, in the next day or two was ready to be available to this plant's pollinators, which they might get the occasional honeybee or very early native bee. Sometimes actually insects like that will head inside of the hood of this flower for warmth. This is a plant that can use its stored starches to generate heat to melt its way to the surface if it has to do that. But there weren't any pollinators present on this day. It normally doesn't attract what we think of as, the things that are attracted to sweet smelling things, the bees, the butterflies. This is a plant that attracts those insects that are looking for stinky things, dead things, the beetles, the flies. Sometimes too, you'll get this little microcosm of a food chain happening there, where you'll get the pollinators that are attracted to the aromas that the plant is putting out, and then you'll get spiders that are in there again, maybe for warmth, but then they find out, hey, look, here's where all the flies and beetles are coming. This is a good place to hang out. I think I'll stay here and have a snack. So sometimes you can find some really interesting things inside that very unusual shaped petal on this flower, the skunk cabbage. So right around, it's like just behind where we were all standing and admiring that skunk cabbage, this was dangling from a tree that turned out to be a black ash tree. And if we zoom in, we can see it's a cocoon. Now, it was pretty cold that day, and this was the first day with my new phone, new camera. So I was more kind of fixated on trying to get it to focus in on something that was dangling in the air than I was to get my lip balm out so we could see how big this thing is. But it is about the size of a lip balm, so about 2 5/8 inches. And it's hanging down sort of pendulously from a twig on this black ash tree. I think, and Miss Bonnie, I know you had shared one of these pictures a few weeks ago. I think this is the cocoon of a Promethea moth. Now, this is not a recent photo. This is from a couple years ago from a reader who had not one, but 2 Promethea moths find each other in her backyard. Hopefully there's lots more Promethea moths in her neighborhood. In fact, she did live in Batavia, although on the west side. And this picture at Glenwood Park was on the east side. But anyway, it was kind of a neat thing to run into as well on this. That was a chilly winter day, as they should be, I might add. So this, I didn't do a great job of capturing this either. This tree that had the Promethea cocoon or suspected Promethea cocoon hanging from it was a black ash tree, and that in itself is kind of cool. But it also had a rub. This is a buck rub, where a deer, a buck, had come and rubbed his antlers, rubbed some scent on that, roughed up the bark a little bit, and let the ladies know, let the does in the area know that this was his territory. Probably let the bucks know as well. But it was just kind of a whole bunch of cool little nature things all in one small area. If I'd been thinking, I would have done a better job of capturing the pictures of the branches of this tree. You can kind of see the lower ones here are growing opposite each other, which is a hallmark trademark feature of the black ash tree. But it was it was a cool couple of things to find. This area, by the way, so Glenwood Park, as you walk south from Glenwood, you go into Lippold Park, which I hear is getting a name change. That is, Glenwood Park is King County Forest Preserve District. Lippold is Fox Valley Park District. Lippold then, you kind of segue into the Red Oak Nature Center property as you walk through Lippold. This whole area pre European settlement was all really, really wet. There are seeps and springs galore throughout that whole area. So the types of plants that like that sort of environment, besides skunk cabbage, you can find marsh marigolds, especially down on the red oak side. There's lots of cool surprises that you can run into as you walk there. So if you're local, you haven't checked it out, you might want to head that way. The marsh marigolds will probably be coming up as we get into, if we continue with this warm weather, they might even show up in March, but usually by April, we're seeing those blooming. Maybe I'll take some pictures and we'll talk about those in an upcoming program. So this, I didn't do a great job of capturing this, but this is a little phenomenon called a panhelion, or a sundog. They're sort of related to rainbows in that they're a prism-like array of color in the sky, but rather than being caused by actual moisture, as in a rainbow, they're caused by ice crystals. And they usually appear on either side of the sun. This is one of those rare occasions when I was out kind of early in the morning. This is, like, so I was driving into Chicago. This was the day I went down to WGN last week. And I was really excited to see that phenomenon there in the sky. Maybe just for a moment consider getting up early more often, but yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see if that happens. And then, so this is a little bit of a story. It's a correspondence with people who read the Shaw Media newspapers, where the Good Natured column runs. I hear from people throughout Northern Illinois because there's a lot of papers that serve small towns. And this next series of pictures, and I did cut them down. I think there was about a dozen of them. A woman who lives out in a community called Rock Falls on the Rock River she had written me in response to a column on the rough-legged hawk. There's been a few sighted in this area over the last few weeks. It's a hawk that's it's the same genus Buteo as the red-tailed hawk. So picture a chunky hawk, not the more streamlined accipiters like the Cooper's hawk, the sharp-shinned hawks. But rough-wings, they are a bird of the north, extreme north. Up in the Arctic is where they breed, but they come down here. They're named rough-legged hawks because in fact, I call them the poofy pants hawks, because they've got feathering that goes all the way down to their toes. So this woman, Jan, had said that she thought she had seen a rough-legged hawk in her yard. And I said, oh, that's great. Can you send me a picture? Can you send me a description? We'll confirm it for you. And what I got was a couple of pictures of an immature red-tailed hawk on a basketball backboard from last summer or fall. The leaves were still on the trees. Everything looked lush and green. So we never really got back to the question of was that a rough-legged or not. But I did get a whole bunch more pictures from her. So here's a squirrel on which I think is a statue of a deer in her yard. And then this is an eagle's nest that's in the area. Again, this is on the Rock River. Rock Falls is across from Sterling. It's kind of downstream. Some of you probably know where this is, downstream, downriver from Dixon, Illinois. There's an eagle's nest near her house, and there was a Cooper's hawk in her backyard. And then she sent this picture and she called it by the pool. And I looked at it and I thought, oh my goodness, this is this is kind of a big deal. When I first looked at it, I thought, well, that's a juvenile or immature black crowned night heron. And then I thought, but there's something odd about it. And I wondered, and birders in the crowd, feel free to disagree with me or point out where I went wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is an immature yellow crowned night heron. Now, night herons, they're not a federally endangered species, but they used to be more common here in Illinois than they are today. The old problems of habitat destruction, and then they're not a bird that everybody's in love with. They're when they have a group of nests, when they form a colony called a rookery for their nesting, they can be kind of noisy, they can be kind of smelly. I think they're really cool birds. When I worked at Red Oak down in Batavia years ago, I remember seeing black crowned night herons. There would always be a pair, and they'd usually have 2 offspring with them, and they would be fishing in the shallows near the Batavia Dam, usually downstream of the North Batavia Dam. And it's usually, if you're persistent and patient, you can usually still spot a black crowned night heron somewhere in that area. But I've not ever seen a rookery around there. There was a rookery in Chicago. I think, Meg, I don't know if you're on the call tonight, but National Geographic had written about the destruction, sort of accidental destruction of a black crowned night heron rookery in Chicago when one of the museums did an expansion project. A Lincoln Park Museum did an expansion, a trail expansion project, and they kind of wiped out a rookery there. But so anyway, getting back to this, yellow crowned night heron. Now, let's go ahead and look at what I was looking at, and you guys can tell me if you agree or not. Here, this is the bird that Jan saw by her pool in her backyard in Rock Falls. This is a website, and I'm going to move this bar out of the way so that the photographer gets full credit. This is a website run by a photographer named Mia McPherson. And here she's got on the left, the immature black crown, and on the right, the immature yellow crown. And what she pointed out was that the black crown is a stockier bird. Its overall impression is that it's kind of hunched over, and its markings are, there's less speckling on the back. The bill is lighter in parts than we'd see on the yellow crown. Here, the yellow crown has a dark bill, longer legs, overall upright, more upright posture, and the light speckling on the wings. Now, if we go back here to what's in Jan's yard, I don't know. What do you think? This white or dark marking here by the eye, I kind of wonder if this bird was starting to grow up a little bit, because if we click here, we see this is what the adult birds look like. Black crown on the left, yellow crown on the right. I'm tempted, and Jan gave me full permission if I wanted to go to the IDNR website. So, I mentioned what happened in Chicago with the black crown night heron rookery. I guess there's an impression. In fact, it's an impression that I often hold, that the Endangered Species Protection Board exists in our state. Well, a lot of, every state has state endangered species, which is a different nuance from federally endangered. It's only endangered, declared endangered in that state. It sounds like there's, regulatory or enforcement abilities that come along with that endangered species board designation. But a lot of cases, the board, there's not enough information, there's not enough data, like we were talking about earlier, to know just where these species exist when construction projects go forward. That's why there are surveys often that are done, but it doesn't always get reported to the proper authorities in the time frame that's required before a construction project moves forward. So anyway, IDNR does have an online form. I think we talked about this one other time when we were talking about osprey nests, where they request citizen scientists, community scientists to report what they're seeing, because we can be the eyes and ears for this agency that has had incredible amounts of cutbacks over the last 20 years or so. So with Jan's permission, she did give me her address and everything. I think I'm gonna go ahead and fill out a form for that bird, because it's kind of exciting. Anyway, I would welcome your input there. In fact, let's take a minute here. I see we've got some chats building up. All right, so Jerry's thinking yellow crown. Okay, yeah, Anna Ralph, we'll get to the housekeeping on the good natured hours coming up. And Sarah, Susie. So Sarah and Susie are tuning in. They are down in Cabo. They are watching gray whales in the ocean right now. Super cool. I think it's really neat that you guys wanted to check back in at home. You're 2 hours, I think 2 hours earlier. All right, we'll give you yeah, it's 8:35. I don't know, Susie and Sarah, if you're still here, and everybody else. Jerry, you had asked the question, are we talking about species? I believe species is the context, yes, in terms of native plants and animals. All right, little drum roll. For native plants, including woodies and herbaceous, the answer was 2,300 plant species. And for animals, the total number is 29,000, of which 27,000 are insects. So those figures came from our restoration ecologist, Ryan. If you have any more questions about those numbers, let me know and I'll pass them on to Ryan. I don't know his source for that, but it was a fun game. And when you consider 29,000, you talk about, opportunities for wonder, 29,000 different animals, 27,000 of which are insects. It explains why we talk so much about bugs in the summertime. But anyway, Susie and Sarah, I hope you got that. If not, well, I'll follow up with you guys later. So, yeah, let's looks like we're getting some confirmation here on the yellow crown thing. So I did check on eBird. So eBird is sort of like iNaturalist in that it's a citizen science driven an online database for collecting observations all over the world. But eBird is, iNaturalist is everything including birds. eBird is about birds. And I looked for observation points around rock falls. I actually looked up Jan's neighborhood, and she is very close to the river. I didn't see any reports there, so I'm not going to do the eBird thing, but I am going to do the IDNR endangered species report form, because I'm just trying to help, trying to be the eyes and ears for an agency that had a lot of its eyes and ears laid off several years ago. So anyway, thanks for the help with that, guys. And Yeah, I'll follow up with Jan too, because I know she'll be excited to hear that. Now, Steve, I don't know if you're here tonight, but Steve lives on the Fox River, and he had a critter bring a mussel shell up onto his yard, and it's a really cool one. I think you're right on with this, Steve, the elk toe. I am gonna email your picture though to our mussel friend Jessie. She's the expert, and she will 100% confirm. But your pictures open the door for a little, it doesn't take much to get me wanting to talk about mussels. But we have a couple dozen species of mussels that are known to live in the waters here in Illinois, but so many of them are threatened, endangered. There's a few that used to be here and they aren't anymore. Between the button industry and pollution, that wiped out scores and scores of mussel beds, not just the Fox River or the Illinois River, also the Mississippi River. But what Steve found looks to be a species called an elk toe. And what I remember most about these in my ramblings with our mussel friend Jessie, as we would go out and look for mussels in say Fearson Creek or the Fox River. I would say Fearson Creek and Big Rock Creek in Kane County are probably two of our most diverse streams in terms of, well, actually not just mussels. They've got a lot of great fish. They've got a lot of great insect life as well. But the elk toe, if you're lucky enough to find one in the water that's still alive and it's moving around, they have, so when mussels move, they have a muscle, muscle, an organ that comes out that they kind of pull themselves along with. It's called a foot. And with the elk toe, it is bright orange. So it's kind of cool to see that sticking out. Usually, you pick the mussel up, the foot goes back in, they spit some water out at you, and they seal up tight. But I think you've got this one, Steve. I did want to point out too, so what you've got there, that is the one of a couple of classic mussel field guides. This was written by Kevin Cummings. He's on the staff of the Natural History Survey. Let me see if I can get this to zoom in at all. I don't think I can. And this was one of just a couple of references we had that were specific to our region for many years. But with that, I want to show you, we're going to stop. No, we're not. We're not going to stop this year. We're just going to switch tabs. A few years ago, this book came out. So when we look at mussels, we're always attracted to the outside of the shell, because that's usually what we see, especially if it's a live mussel. You can't see the inside of the shell. But there are some identification characteristics that you can only see when you look inside. So going back a few years now, in fact, Jessie was one of the editors on this book. This is something that you can find on the Field Museum website. I actually looked up this title, Chicago Wilderness Freshwater Mussel Field Guide. I just put that in the search engine and it came up that way as well. But this is a book that you can download it if you'd like, but it takes Mussel ID to the next level because, well, for one, it's got Dr. Clammy, who points out useful field marks and such. So I'm just kind of scrolling through. This is the first part. It explains muscle anatomy and what the various areas that you look at are for identification. The umbo, which is also called the beak, and the hinge back here. There's sometimes different clefts or shapes to the mussel itself. When you open up the teeth, there's a lot that has to do with the teeth of the mussel. Does it have pseudocardinal teeth or not? What does this interior look like? So that's all in the beginning part of the book. Credits, thank yous, all that. But here we have for every mussel found in our region, we have views of not just the outside of the mussel, like Dr. Cummings' book, but we have pictures of the inside too. And they have all sorts of, just like, in the Peterson field guides for birds, they have arrows that point out the important traits. Here they have circles and explanations to help you work your way through the identification of these different mussels. So Steve, on yours, you were thinking elk toe, and an elk toe, let's see if we can find elk toe. I can use a search, right? So here's your mussel, and here's what you found on the outside. It talks about that sharp ridge, and then it's kind of flat then on the end. You can look on that flattened end for fine ridges. And then the umbo or the beak, this is called the beak sculpture. This one has always kind of flummoxed me, because a beak sculpture, for one, these things wear over time depending on the age of the mussel. Sometimes some of it wears off, it gets smooth, it's hard to decipher. They're describing it as 3 to 4 heavy raised double looped bars, although the looping can be weak or absent. So, you like Jessie, she hangs out with mussels all the time. She can pick these things up in a heartbeat. Takes the rest of us a little bit longer. But if we scroll down here to the internal views, look at this. This is so it's in the group called the Anodontinae, which means they do not have those pseudo teeth. They're really, well, I shouldn't say they don't have it, but they are barely visible. If we're to go to, okay, so I'm going to do another search. There's another mussel that can be somewhat similar at first glance to the elk toe. It's called an ellipse. It has an elliptical shape. When we look at its the internal where its hinges come together, look at that. These are those teeth I was talking about. The teeth are they're there to help the shell line up correctly when it's going back closed again. Those teeth help the two valves, the two sides to stay in alignment as the shell comes closed again. So here's an up close view of the teeth. Here's a little bit farther away view of the teeth. You can check, you flip your shell over Steve, and see if there's any teeth there or not, but I'm pretty sure you nailed it there with the elk toe diagnosis. All right, you know what? I'm gonna click out of this. I'm actually gonna stop the share because guess what? I happen to have some mussels here. Not live, unfortunately, but I just wanted to see, and I'm not so great with the camera, but I wanted to see if I could hold up here. This is a species that is really common throughout the area because it's not as fussy as a lot of the mussels are. They are, this is called a giant floater. It has quite a bit of tolerance to pollution. And so we find it in places like sometimes even in the dead zone, so-called dead zone above a dam. They can survive in areas where the dissolved oxygen is low. This is one of the species being brought back in the Chicago River. And they're not fussy about the fish host that they use to disperse their young. So they will even use carp to have their Lachydia or their offspring dispersed. Anyway, this is a species that has no pseudocardinal teeth. So we've got the lateral, what that's called the lateral teeth here. And the two valves just lock together along that line where those teeth, that lateral tooth is. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but just for comparison here, let's pull up. This is another pretty common species in this area. This is called a plain pocketbook. I always picture, like my grandma with her, she always called her purse her pocketbook. She'd open it up and get her change out. Now, if we look at the hinges here, we open up. We've got our lateral teeth here. And then look at these big honking teeth here. This is the pseudocardinal teeth. And when the two valves come together, there's one on this side, two on this side, they come together. They lock together and it keeps everything lining up. Oh, I made a Dr. Clammy. So presence or absence of teeth, that's a big thing to look for if you happen to find shells that are open, that are no longer living. And while I was getting these out, I found something. I sort of forgot I had these. I've got a whole bunch of them. They were given to me by a gentleman who had a friend who had some property over on the Illinois River, and as the water levels would rise and fall, he would find artifacts in his yard. And one of the things that he would come across are these pottery shards. Now, my friend is he's kind of an amateur archaeologist, and he's dated these shards to about 1,000 years ago. You can see there was some cordage used to make a pattern on whatever this piece of pottery was, probably some kind of a vessel to hold something. But you're probably thinking, all right, so what does this have to do with mussels? If we turn it around, can you see those white light flecks in there? Those are ground up mussel shells. It was talking about how, the different uses of mussels over time. Of late, it's 100 years ago, it was people collecting them to make buttons with, but tempering the clay with ground up mussel shells was a way to keep the clay from cracking when they were heating it up, firing it to make it stable over time. So that's why I have a whole bunch of pottery shards in my mussel bin over here in the closet. These things have been used for millennia by humans of all backgrounds. All right. I think that's most of the news I had for you tonight. I did want to add, I know some of you, we sent out here at the Park District, we send out a quarterly email newsletter called Hickory Happenings or Hickory Knolls Happenings, and it's a roundup of all the programs that we have coming up at the Nature Center, and it listed Good Natured. We didn't have the peak registration platform updated, but it got done today. So feel free, if you're so inclined, to sign up for more. We have dates for March, April, and May put up on peak. So knock yourself out, sign up for whatever you'd like, or tell your friends if you'd like, or not. Anyway, it's great to see everybody. Really appreciate your time. Does anybody have anything for the good of the group? If not, great to be back. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Next week, I think next week, after I said that we were going to be, and I think next week is one of the dates. I requested 3 different nights off that I have other commitments for, but when you go to peak, you'll see what's up. If I'm not going to be available, then we just blacked out. It's not that it filled up with 1,000 people. It's what it looks like it did, but it just means that I'm not going to be here. So there's one night off in March, 1 night in April, and 1 in May. But other than that, we'd love to have you back. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and see you soon.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Meg.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you,
Have a good
everybody.
night.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.